Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing some work on this 2004 Mitsubishi Pinin. This is the 1.8 petrol model. Today we're going to be doing the fan belts, or I think are now known as drive belts. These days most cars have electric fan belts, so they're not actually powered by the belts anymore. This vehicle actually has two belts on it, one for the alternator and one that powers the power steering and air conditioning. This is an air conditioning model. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take off the air intake. There's two 13mm bolts here and here, and that just pulls out the air box. That just gives us a bit more room to get our hands down in the back. Off the belt or the bolts for the alternator. So down in here, the alternator has got two bolts we need to undo. Firstly, this is a 12mm. Just backing this off. This is just the adjuster. And secondly, a 13mm bolt here, which allows the alternator to move backwards and forwards. So I've undone both, I've backed them both off, as you can see, and I can then just move this bar up, which releases the lock. The alternator then moves backwards and forwards to either tighten or loosen the belt. I think, got a feeling these are probably the original belts, Dayco. It's actually got a Mitsubishi badge on it, so they are in really poor condition. I've had to put a bit of penetrating oil on the bar here because, like I said, I know it's been done for a long time. I also put a bit of penetrating oil on the bottom bar just to allow the alternator to move. So that's all undone. It now moves towards the engine, releases the belt, and the belt will just simply pop over now. So I've now moved the alternator towards the end, so the top of the alternator towards the actual engine. So you can see it slides in this groove here. So the top of the alternator is right as far back into the engine, which has released the tension on the belt, and it will just come off the top of the pulley. And it's ready to get removed now. So now we're going to move on to the second belt, which powers the power steering pump and the air conditioning pump underneath, and is locked out by this lock down in here, which I don't know if you can see. There's a funny little lock, which is actually a left-handed thread. This one here my fingers are on. So you undo that until you've got some room, some space. And what I did is I undid the nut on the actual pulley, and that just releases the tensioning pulley, which is the second pulley down, which again just releases the pressure off the belt. I haven't taken it totally off. If it falls off, it's going to be a bit awkward to put back on. So again, that's now ready to take off. Just bearing in mind to take a either just do a little sketch or try and remember, take a photograph of where the pulley goes over, under and round the bottom one. Again, like I said, that's now ready to come off. We'll come over the top of the pulley and is ready to get replaced. Yeah, just further than that, the nut on the tensioning pulley and the nut at the back are both 15mm, this one here and this one here. So next thing is to remove the power steering and air conditioning belt first, because it's the one at the front. Like I said, it's now nice and loose. You can just take off the top of the top pulley, then off the tensioning belt, and it then simply comes away. As I said, I think these are very, very old belts. It's probably one of the worst conditioned belts I've seen in a long time. Quite surprising it's still holding on. So that is the longer belt of two. Now to the alternator belt, like I said, it's nice and loose, so it should just pop over the top pulley and remove. Simple as that. I do usually like to wear rubber gloves, but unfortunately I've run out at the moment. It's quite hard to get them. So we now fit the new belts. So this is our replacement belt. This is the alternator belt. I'm actually refitting Dayco, which is what was on there. This is actually a friend's car, so I like to put a decent quality belt on. I think I paid about £14 for this belt, so it's not too bad. And there is only one size for the alternator belt for all models. So that's the new belt fitted back on, as simple as that, over the bottom pulley, over the top pulley. I've just kept, there's no rotation arrow on them, but I've just kept them within the name facing down, which is what the previous one, the original one, was on. So the name facing that way. Like I said, I can't see a rotation arrow, so I'm just copying what was on there. So now I can just move the alternator back towards the battery in that way, put the adjusting nuts back over the top and tighten them back up. Right, that's the alternator belt back on and adjusted back up. Adjusted the adjuster nut, locked off here when you're happy. This needs a little bit of play in it. If the belt still squeals, you've got it too loose, and if it comes off with like a horrible droning noise, you've got it way too tight. You've just got to get it in sort of between the two. Like I said, a little bit of play in it. I usually try it. We'll go from there. You can always readjust it. It's quite quick and simple with the two nuts. If it's too tight and drones, you'll end up damaging your bearings and alternators. You don't want it too tight. So that's that bit done. And now the second belt, the power steering and air conditioning. These actually come in two separate lengths for the Pinin that are both for air conditioning. This one's actually, that's the length there. This one's a 1345. You also can get a 1330. I actually ordered both because I wasn't too sure and I hadn't had the belts off to measure them, but you can easily measure the belt round. Like I said, this one's a 1345 on this. Okay, that's the second belt back in place now. Tighten up the tension with the nut on the pulley and lock it off with the lock nut at the back. Okay, that's both belts back on to the tension I'm happy with. Air intake box now fitted. Last thing, just give the car a quick start. Make sure there's no squealing or droning. The sound of it, I'm pretty happy with that. Sounds all good. Thanks for watching.